My dear friends of today's webinar, I'm pleased to welcome you all to this webinar on global collaboration on traumatic stress. This is a part of web series from the Department of Psychology, CRC Sikkim. It aims at providing key inputs on various aspects of mental health. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown the value of national and international cooperation and collaboration to survive united. A poll in 14 countries showed that about 60% of respondents believe that even greater international collaboration reduce the number of COVID-19 cases. In this virtual conference room, I recognize some familiar names as participants from government and the private NGOs. I'm sure we are also reaching out to many students, friends, practitioners, civil society representatives. A warm welcome to you all. Ladies and gentlemen, together let us accelerate the exchange of ideas. I am confident that you will find new ideas, fresh energy. I wish you all a very successful webinar. It's a kind request to all the participants to kindly stay till the end to make it a fruitful webinar. Thank you. Now I request Mr. Vidyabhushan sir, our lecturer in physiotherapy, to continue the formal webinar proceedings.
सुप्रभात। आज के वेबिनार से जुड़े सभी लोगों को नमस्कार। मैं विद्याभूषण, व्याख्याता भौतिक चिकित्सा, पूरे सीआरसी सिक्किम एवं राष्ट्रीय दृष्टि दिव्यांगजन संस्थान देहरादून की तरफ से आज के वेबिनार, जिसका शीर्षक अभिघात जन्य तनाव पर वैश्विक सहयोग, ग्लोबल कोलैबोरेशन ऑन ट्रॉमेटिक स्ट्रेस है, से आज के वेबिनार में जुड़े सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स को मैं आमंत्रित करता हूं। आज का वेबिनार बहुत ही प्रासंगिक है। अचानक से ये इस तरह के आत्मघाती महामारी के कारण जहां एक तरफ लोगों के जीवन अस्त व्यस्त किया है, तो दूसरी तरफ जो हमारे प्रोफेशनल्स इनसे जुड़े हुए थे, इनकी चिकित्सा में जुड़े हुए थे, उन लोगों के ऊपर भी तनाव आया है। और आज के इस प्रोग्राम में जुड़ने के लिए सबसे पहले मैं वेलकम करना चाह रहा हूं अपने आदरणीय हमारे मार्गदर्शक डॉक्टर हिमांशु दास, निर्देशक NIEPVD देहरादून, जो कि दिव्यांगता के क्षेत्र में हमारे निर्देशक महोदय डॉक्टर हिमांशु दास किसी भी परिचय के मोहताज नहीं है। 25 वर्षों के कार्य अनुभव दिव्यांगता के क्षेत्र में उन्होंने विभिन्न पदों पर क्लिनिकल, प्रशासनिक, पॉलिसी मेकिंग एवं शैक्षणिक पदों पे कार्य किया है। उनके द्वारा किए गए कार्य आज हम लोगों के लिए प्रेरणादायक है। सर का योगदान दिव्यांगता के क्षेत्र में सर्वव्यापक है, जिसमें से उन्होंने राष्ट्रीय पुनर्वास परिषद एवं इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विश्वविद्यालय के पाठ्यक्रमों की रचना करना एवं उसे संशोधित करने का कार्य किया है। उन्होंने आसामी भाषा में बहुदिव्यांगता के क्षेत्र में हस्त पुस्तिका का संशोधन किया। उनके द्वारा राष्ट्रीय एवं अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठी में बहुत सारे साइंटिफिक पेपर का प्रेजेंटेशन किया गया एवं उन्होंने बहुत सारे राष्ट्रीय एवं अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठी का आयोजन भी किया। विजिटिंग फैकल्टी के रूप में सर ने रॉम्पटन विश्वविद्यालय लंदन, चार्ल्स विश्वविद्यालय पराग, चेक रिपब्लिक एवं यूरोप के विभिन्न देशों में भी योगदान दिया है। इन सभी कार्यों के लिए उन्हें अनेक बार विभिन्न संस्थानों जो कि दिव्यांगता से जुड़े हुए थे, उनके द्वारा सर को पुरस्कृत किया गया है। सर का कार्य हम लोगों के लिए मार्गदर्शक एवं प्रेरणा के स्रोत है एवं सर को आज के इस संगोष्ठी में जुड़ने के लिए हम सीआरसी सिक्किम की तरफ से आमंत्रित करते हैं। सर अभी प्रेजेंटली निर्देशक हैं NIEPVD देहरादून के एवं इन्होंने अपना योगदान NIEPMD चेन्नई एवं NIEPID हैदराबाद में भूतपूर्व निर्देशक के रूप में भी दिया है। सर आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आज के प्रोग्राम में और आपका जुड़ने के लिए हम लोग अब आपको आमंत्रित करते हैं, वेलकम करते हैं। आज के रिसोर्स पर्सन यही माननीय हैं डॉक्टर प्रोफेसर L. मानिक सर, जो कि अभी निर्देशक हैं वेलनेस एंड मेंटल हेल्थ फैक्यूट्रा हेल्थ सेंटर एंड टेक्नोलॉजी PVT लिमिटेड, बेंगलुरु, इंडिया में। इन्होंने भूतपूर्व महासचिव, भारतीय नैदानिक मनोवैज्ञानिक परिषद परिषद में भूतपूर्व सचिव के पद पर कार्य किए हैं। ये इनिशिएटर एंड मॉडरेटर ऑफ भारतीय मनोवैज्ञानिक वर्चुअल तंत्र, जिसमें 10,000 से ज्यादा सदस्य शामिल हैं। उनके द्वारा वैश्विक गेस्टाल्ट चिकित्सा के चिकित्सक भी हैं, वैश्विक गेस्टाल्ट चिकित्सा शोध समिति के सदस्य हैं। सर, आप टेली मेंटल हेल्थ एवं डिजिटल इथिक्स के भी सर्टिफाइड प्रैक्टिशनर्स हैं। आपके द्वारा 60 से अधिक आर्टिकल पब्लिश किया गया है एवं विभिन्न शोध पत्रिकाओं में भी आपने बहुत सारे आर्टिकल्स को पब्लिश किए हैं। लेखक के रूप में आपसे अधिक पुस्तकों के 3 किताबों के भी लेखक हैं। द्वारा अब नई पुस्तक का नाम ऑफ इंडिया है। सर, आपके के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद एवं आज आप हमारे साथ रिसोर्स पर्सन के रूप में इस संगोष्ठी में जुड़ रहे हैं, उनके उस लिए सर आपका बहुत ही स्वागत है। साथ ही हम आज के इस कार्यक्रम में अपने रेसिडेंट कोऑर्डिनेटर महोदया मोरंगखन आरिस मैडम का स्वागत करते हैं। इस वेबिनार से जुड़े सीआरसी सिक्किम के सभी सदस्यों का तहे दिल से स्वागत करते हैं कि सभी आज इस संगोष्ठी में जुड़े। हम स्वागत करते हैं कि जितने भी प्रतिभागी जुड़े हुए हैं, जिससे आज के कार्य में सबके बताए निर्देश होगा, तो सबको धन्यवाद। और नाव आज बीच निर्देशक महोदय नहीं जुड़ पाएंगे कार्यक्रम में हम लोगों को आशीर्वाद देने के लिए। सर का मार्गदर्शन हम लोगों के साथ तो नाउ अभी मैं रजनी मैडम से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं कि मैडम आप कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाएं। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind acceptance of webinar, Professor Sam Manikam, sir. Sir is a Dronacharya for Indian psychologists, who is a guru for national and international psychologists. So I welcome you kindly to deliver your talk, sir.
Yeah, thank you for your kind welcome words, Dr. Rini, and thank you, Mr. Vidya Bhushan, for introducing me to the participants. First, I would like to thank Dr. Rajani for reaching out. I have never met, I don't think I've met Rajani so far, but we have been virtually connected even before the COVID on came, where people went on to telecon. So thank you, Rajani, for this invitation. And I thank CRC Sikkim for taking this initiative of organizing this webinar. I don't know where I met your director, Dr. Himanshu, but the name is very, very familiar. And I am aware that he is stationed, and as well Vidya Bhushan is stationed at Dehradun. And that is something interesting to me, because way back in 1984, I'd been to Dehradun. So it's quite long. And after that, I've not been to that place. So when you said Dehradun, that memories of visiting to Mussoorie and all those things comes up. But I will not talk about all those things, but I will try to stay with my topic. And good morning to you all participants, those who are actively participating now. I will probably share my screen now. Yeah, so this is a topic which actually this is topic was chosen by Dr. Rajani. So I have added a subcomponent to it that's towards a trauma-informed society. This is my overview of presentation that I'll be introduction trauma, and then I'll talk about what's the need for to be informed about trauma reactions. I'm mainly focusing on children, because unless if we trauma as such and the reactions in adults, if we take again, that's another large topic. But I'm aware that CRC is focusing more on children, so I thought that I'll focus on children. And psychological first aid, I'll bring a little bit on how to respond to that, and slightly touch upon Gestalt therapy, which has been close to my heart, and then focus on international agencies and close by talking about the way forward. In one sense, when we talk about international collaboration, the presentation which I'm going to talk about or giving you is all has evolved out of my international collaboration. Talk about the topic of global. One sense, this comes out of the global collaboration. I don't know whether there's a way forward wherein we can connect with larger global community related to trauma. Most of you may be aware of trauma, and when you talk about trauma, there are different definitions given to trauma. So one of the definitions which recently brought out by Gaber Mate, psychiatrist, but has been work and addiction time based in Canada, with a definition. Trauma is a wound that hardens you psychologically and then ability to grow and develop. It acting out of pain. It induces, and now we are acting out of fear. Trauma is not what happens to what happened to you. Interesting, which elaborate a little bit detail, but it induces fear, and now you are reacting out of fear. Trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you. So trauma is that scarring that makes you less flexible. The other dimension of trauma is scarring that makes you less flexible, more rigid, less feeling, and more defended. So Gaber would put trauma as a two-sided one, which I will talk a little bit more detail. So it's actually trauma means it's a Greek word meaning wound. So it is a result of what had happened to you and what not happened to you. This is also, we need to be differentiate. We have to, if you are all professionals trying to help others, or if you are a person who had been wounded, this is something which one has to keep in mind, that it is not the result of what happened to you and not what happened to you. Because what is happening is sort of, if you talk about a personal trauma or a natural disaster, which can be traumatic, it's common to all. But again, it's not what happened as a disaster, but what is happening within you, what was the result of it for you or me as an individual. So there's a traumatic event that induces trauma. Trauma is a wound that sustains. As we all know, it's a wound that sustains. And it has got a two-sided response. If you had come across, if you had a wound in any part of your body, that if it's an open wound, it is very sensitive. When touched, it is quietly, it gives pain, which sometimes is bearable. Sometimes, depending on the intensity of the wound, it becomes very, very painful. And it's a psychic pain that, when we talk about trauma, it's a psychic pain that hurts very badly. And a wound that is not healed hurts more. That also physically we can understand. If I have a wound in my body and if it is not healed, as long as you walk with that wound, as long as the wound is not healed, it hurts more and more. The second part of it is that it's leaving a scar. Because if you look at if you understand what a scar is, those are tissues which are dead cells, which doesn't have much of a reaction when you touch, if you have a scar in your body. So it doesn't feel, or you feel very rigid about it. There is no organic growth in relation to that wound. So it's sort of stuck there. And it is inflexible. It's not something which you can easily maneuver it. So trauma is, Gaber would say that it's can be understood from that perspective, which is a recent one. There are other people who define trauma differently too, but this is what I think this definition for me looks to be very appropriate. So it's not being, many people think that, I am sad about it, I am uncomfortable about what had happened, but one has to be aware of what a trauma is. And sometimes we use it very loosely, and it is not sometimes used the way it is experienced by the people. And one can inflict trauma also, that has been happening all over the world. Recently, the reports of bodies being unearthed in different institutions in Canada has come out, where 250 children, their bodies were found. It has hurt the whole community. And we know, if you look back to the kind of inflicting trauma from different ways, we have several incidents. I'm not going to narrate all those incidences. Then it might take, history of trauma itself will take a long time to explain. But we need to be aware that one can hurt other people. We can hurt emotionally assault people. It can be traumatic. And also not providing them with food, health affection, not being left alone. All could be, and not meeting the needs. If you think of lockdown, and the people whom we have seen have been suffering, we're all traumatized in one way or the other. And it depends, I think, being a part of the society, I also need to owe responsibility of inflicting traumas. So I think we need to be informed. The people at large have to be informed about the trauma. And COVID is understood from a model called as dislocation model, which was proposed by Bruce Alexander. He's a psychologist who was talking about globalization of addiction. He has worked in that aspect, but one of the aspects of that is a dislocation model, which he talks about, wherein he talks about the loss of psychosocial indication of an individual. So one individual needs to be connected with the human community and should have meaning. And when that kind of a dislocation happens, different kinds of trauma can happen. And it has been there for decades. If you think about the people who had to migrate from one place to the other because of the local disturbance or due to different kinds of threat, it has been there for decades, and India had seen different kinds of those kind of disasters, dislocation also. Not only during lockdown, even earlier, the partition, or even much earlier than that also, it has been there. So people are isolated and stressed, which can lead to the trauma. So we may have to, I don't know whether how many of us, I mean the psychologists or the sociologists have looked at from this model. So it may be an interesting thing for the young professionals to look into it from a different kinds of model. I'm not saying that you have to buy it only from the dislocation model. When we study large population, this may be very relevant for the migrant population, but there could be different kinds of models that we may be able to bring out if we are able to collaborate and work on it from a research perspective. So here, I think I would like to thank again Rajani for mentioning this. We may have to look at for global collaboration to see. Sometimes a person from outside, when I see from inside, I may not be able to see what is happening within me. So when I ask another person to have an audit, or I look at what is happening, then they get a different perspective, which might help us to have more of a better insight into what's happening, and might help us to come out with different kinds of explanations for what people have been experiencing at different parts of our country. Because what happens in the Northeast may not be the same in the Northwest, or in the North would be different from the East, where that kind of a diversity can be very much there in India. If I start reflecting on my own experiences of being, what kind of threats happen when I'm in different parts of India, that itself might bring out a lot of information. But I wish that we are able to collaborate nationally for understanding this problem. And for that, I think the Indian Psychologist Forum that Rajani had mentioned, or during introduction has mentioned, might help us to collaborate or identify people who are working in this area and collaborate and work on. Anyway, I'll probably talk about a little bit about that at the end of the presentation. So is there a need to be informed about trauma? If it was an in-person meeting, I would have asked some of you to talk about it. I would like to have an interactive session on that. If you have some kind of things on chat, unfortunately in Google, I can't see what's happening in the chat right now. But if you can put in chat, is there a need for me or you to be informed about trauma? No, maybe I'll take it up at the end. I will probably share and continue with this, but please bring it up in the last part of our presentation where we have adequate time for the interaction. Rajani, you want to say something now?
No, sir. Actually, I have not seen any questions as of now. So I'm just going to ask them about mentioning the questions in the chat box itself.
Okay, yeah. Please do that. Yeah. Okay, so I'm reminded of several instances, but a couple of instances I would mention here. Following tsunami, I'd been to a couple of schools in Chennai. At that time I was in Chennai. I met the principal, the teachers, and we briefed that I know we are from the Department of Clinical Psychology in SRMC. At that time it was SRMC, it was Sri Ramachandra University in Chennai. So they said, what's the need here? It was a couple of months after the tsunami had happened. And then they were saying, that's all okay. They're all back to school. And they're all very active. I said, if you don't mind, I would like to meet one of the classes. So I had a girl student with me. So we both of them went to the classroom and made rapport with them, talked to them, started relating, made contact with them, and started talking, and just asked, what kind of concerns that you have. Then you wouldn't believe a good number of them were still having the trauma reactions. I'll talk about those reactions later, but the reactions were there, but the teachers were not aware of it. The same thing happened when I started this thing, working with trauma in a serious manner. That was in 2001. Following a natural disaster, I'd been to a school. There again, the same thing happened. A large number of children had difficulties because I asked the headmistress. She said that no, there is no issue here. The disaster, it was a natural disaster, sliding of a rock, wherein which some 38 people died, and some of the children who were studying in the same school were also lost. But they said that okay, they're all back. But then while talking to the principal, she said, look, we don't have any issues here. All were in the relief camp because the relief camp was in the school. So we visited the school where the relief camp was kept. And then while talking, she said, it's not an issue here. They all have gone back. Then after half an hour, she came back saying, see, look, we find our children were not as cheerful as they were before this. Okay, I said that is let us see what's happening. So we were a team of I think it was 4 at that time. Yeah, so we went to one of the classrooms. Then we found a good number of them were there. Then we had to develop a lot of methodologies to evaluate them quickly and differentiate who is affected and who is not affected, and provide the kind of a support that we could at that time. So what I'm trying to say is that once you ask people, even myself, do I have a trauma? Do I have a reaction to that? How is my body taking it right now? Those are all important issues that we need to be aware of. Same thing happened. I thought that it's only in India, but even in Nigeria, when I was conducting a workshop in a college, so I asked young adults, they said, is there any need to talk about trauma? They said, no issues and all. Then I said, we spent some time talking. And then they said, yeah, I saw my sister being shot in front of me. It was a shock for me. He's saying that, some people broke open the house and got in with a gun and holding his sister in captive and shooting. Now I could see his trauma reactions in front of me. So I said, this is the importance of being informed about trauma. Youths, I will skip that because there are a lot of things I would like to share with you. So we need to have the wisdom of knowing trauma. I'm again quoting Gaberman, who talked about, he is talking about, becoming friends with trauma. And if you become friends with trauma, it can tremendous wisdom that it can give us, or, it can teach a lot of things, which I personally feel it has got a lot of relevance, to be composed with the traumatic experiences. If you are able to do that, that gives you tremendous power to not only in growing myself, but probably in helping other people also, because I'm talking about this, assuming that there are a lot of people who are professionals who are helping other people. It may be your own family member, or it may be you as a professional helping your clients. So most often what happens is that people get disconnect between the body and the feelings. So this is, again, I would connect to the Gestalt work, where we focus mainly on the body. Body is more important. So your feelings, if you're not healed of the wound, if you're carrying your unfinished business, it can affect your body and also your feelings, how you respond to a person, either of the same gender or opposite gender. All depends on the trauma and if there is a disconnect between your body and the feelings. So we may have to bow down to the wisdom of the body. So that wisdom can be in two ways. One is what we can learn from it. I had a traumatic event. What can I learn from it? Many young people find it difficult to probably comprehend this. To taking things as a learning experience. I'm not saying that it doesn't hurt, but what actually it is, what is the body's protection against the emotional impact of the trauma is also important. Because I'm sure that the event is terrible, depending on the intensity of the event. I'm not saying certain events are mild and certain events are terrible, but what I perceive as a traumatic event could be terrible, but I need to learn, or I need to gain wisdom out of my trauma. So there's a broader global awareness of trauma is needed, and that's where I again get back to Rajini and say that this is very important. You're taking this initiative to reach a larger audience of making people aware of the trauma. And it has to be there as part of our education, as part of our parenting, as part of medicine, as part of psychology, of course. Actually, today morning I was reading the newspaper. A 6-year-old girl was repeatedly abused and murdered. So this needs probably the inflicting of trauma in one of the ways by leaving this girl unprotected or in an unsafe environment at home alone. Maybe our social situations are such that we have no other option, but I think the parenting has a great role there to make sure that our children are not as safe as it used to be in the earlier days. But I think we need to bring that or build that awareness of to the people at large. And now, if I'm thinking of that trauma which has happened earlier, and I need to think of what is happening now, in the present, and we need to think of the possibility of healing and moving on. And that might require not only education, maybe sometimes professional help, or a psychological first aid might help, or more and more people being educated and helping out would be of more use. So we need to encourage people and to address what all is possible. And for people in the profession of healing, we need to be aware that healing cannot begin without acknowledging what has happened. I'm just reminded of a girl who was brought to me with, she was not speaking. So she was referred by a psychiatrist saying that she's not speaking, and there has been no organic cause for that or a physical cause for that. So this, I will not go into the details of it. She had a trauma, and she asked me a very, 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 very tough question. So people can ask tough questions when you talk about making people aware of the trauma. So if somebody is aware of the trauma and acknowledge that this has happened and I need to address it, that probably makes the road, or that might be the first step on the way towards healing. So we need to have a trauma-informed society, and here I have probably dealt with a lot of training of trainers workshops. So one of the workshops which we conducted was in Nepal, in association with the American Psychological Association. I was at that time working with the JSS University in Mysore, and it was a community-based psychological first aid training of trainers. And we had the Nepalese Psychologists Network associated with us. We had the Tribhuvan University associated with us, and we also had IACP, Indian Association of Clinical Psychology, associated with it. So we all were part of this. So that's the kind of a collaboration that is needed for us to carry on a lot of work. We need more of a collaboration from different agencies. So during this time, we focused on different things, but this is something which is related to the children's reaction to traumatic events. Some of you, all these things may be familiar to you, may not be familiar to you, but I would like to share what is important. If Rajini feels that this is not needed, you can tell me so that I will skip some of the slides and move forward.
Absolutely fine, sir. They are very well, so you can continue.
Okay, because I'm not able to see the participants. That's why I'm asking you to give me a feedback of seeing. Yeah.
We have around 68 participants. Yes, sir. Fine.
Okay, and do you know their background so that I can probably either skip or talk about some of the.
So you can continue, sir. I don't think so.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So, as I said earlier, some of the reactions in children and adults will be more or less same, but I will be focusing more those of children. If you talk about the adults, they also have emotional reactions. They also have behavioral reactions. They also have physical reactions, cognitive, and probably spiritual reactions in the adults. But in children, it may not be there. Some children ask, what am I worshiping God for, or what am I praying God for? Why did I live like this in my all these years of 5, 6 years, or 8 years, or 10 years? Some of them, I'm not saying all, but some of them can be asking. I've seen a child praying, let Corona be not there. So he thinks that Corona is a being, and he wants the Corona not to be there. That is from a 5-year-old child I'm talking about. So, but some other children may not be praying or may not be concerned that from a spiritual dimension, but that's the kind of a thing which we would be focusing on. So the emotional reactions are mainly of anxiety, fear, vulnerability, fear of recurrence, fear of being left alone, particularly if separated family during the event. So this actually, I was discussing this from natural disasters or other calamities, but then I was wondering, what if the child has to be separated, as I was separated when I was 8 years old from my parents, because there was chickenpox in the family. I don't think that impacted me much, but I was aware that maybe I was with my grandmother and the family. There were other children to play around, don't have to go to school, play around in the river, have fun, swim, learn swimming, catch fish in the river. A lot of fun was there, but it is not like that in this COVID time, where you cannot go out. Even if you're isolated, you're not able to go out. So no other event. What about even, how, just imagine the age of the child where the parents are not there and the child has to be taken care by somebody else. So can be very traumatic. And reaction seems exaggerated to adults, but not to children. So there's a loss of sense of safety there. If the person is in a safe place, it's fine. But otherwise, as I mentioned earlier, different kinds of issues can come up. So there could be depression, which need not, again, depends. When we talk about depression, whether we are talking about a mild depression, major depression, severe depression, as we talk in the DSM-3 or DSM-5 or the ICD-10. Sometimes it can be there because of various other parameters, but anger could be there. They may be used in different ways. It may not be saying that I am angry because I am isolated, but there are different, less obvious ways of expressing it, and sometimes it could be manifested through passive aggressiveness also. Guilt also can be there, maybe because this is something which is brought in because of our parenting also, that if you do this, this will happen to you. So then the child starts thinking that, I was not obeying my parents, that's why this has happened to me, or I was maybe I should have done it differently. Instead of a child who had lost he was very sad, and I'm talking about the tsunami days when I was at the seashore. A child came. I mean, she was playing, but I just made contact with her and asked about different things. And then I lost my toy, which I had been keeping it for a long period of time. And then maybe I should not have taken that toy to the seashore to play with. That's why it went away from me. So that kind of a guilt also, parents would have asked, I think, if I remember correctly, parents have asked her not to take the toy, but she took it and she lost it. That was her concern and the guilt following that. So there could be different kinds of reactions. Some things might appear childish for us, but it could be a kind of a regressive behavior. And it need not be deliberately acting out, but it's one of the behavioral bodily reactions that one can have, and it can be experienced during as bedtime problems, like in sleep onset, insomnia, or midnight awakening, fear of darkness, fear of event reoccurring during night. Of course, COVID cannot be there, but other traumas or other events a child can think that it can happen during the night. And physical reactions would be like headaches, stomach aches, nausea, eating problems, and other physical reactions. This is something which, as I was mentioning earlier, all these things what I mean by we as the parents or the adults have an explanation. Oh, he's having a headache because he doesn't want to study. He's got stomach ache because he doesn't want to go to school. He's got nausea, but he also got exams. He's got eating problems because we tend to give explanations for that, but we don't try to explore what is happening with a child to find out. Because a lot of events happen for a longer period of time. The child won't tell to the parents that this has been happening, but the child may have this kind of reactions, which I mentioned earlier, as the emotional or behavioral reactions or the physical reactions, which needs to be explored. And could be cognitive reactions of confusion and disorientation. Particularly difficult symptoms for school-age children can be there, and they have difficulty in concentrating. It may appear as a behavioral problem in the classroom, but people may not understand that this is a reaction to the trauma that has happened. Sometimes, it could be that the child may function quite well in the school, but at the same time has problems at home because of different issues that may have happened at the place where the child remains. And he is able to retain a sense of control when he is in the school. The trigger events are another issue which it may not, all these reactions may not happen immediately, but it may appear after months. So it may be like a temporary healing, but then again it erupts after a period of time. And it may be triggered by different kinds of experiences of smells or sights or sounds. Right now I'm actually struggling with one of the issues, like I've seen a child who is refusing to play outside in the evenings, which he used to do before. I don't know what is there. Sometimes he says that Corona is there. I don't know what exactly is happening. I'm exploring. So whether a boy who was quite well playing outside, but was told that, okay, you have to be careful because of the Corona, now refusing to go out. This kind of things may become more challenging for those who are professionals when people are being locked down for a more period of time. So I don't know how the newer challenges are going to be. So sometimes it is useful to identify the triggers. Sometimes the reactions of children also may rewire or make the things uncomfortable for the person. Like this is you may have seen in relation to the death of close family members. When somebody starts crying or starts narrating an event and starts the emotional changes appear, then the other people also is being activated. So that kind of trigger events could be there. Usually it happens during anniversaries of events or even otherwise. Some of the risk factors in relation to children in this things is that adults may not be available to children, especially in situations like this, in COVID, not only in disaster, but where the people are focused on their own coping or that of the family survival. So suppose if there's a breadwinner and he has to take care of his parents and the children are there, children are sometimes left out. And other issues which are related to the development also could be there. And health of the individuals could be an issue, chronic poor health could be an issue, lower defenses could be an issue, treatment or medications may not be available. As what happened during the COVID times, people had difficulty in. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there could be different kinds of other risk factors, chronic poor health, either of the child or that of the family members. And I was talking about the non-availability of the medications or the pharmacy not being, before the telemedicine had come in, people were not able to access medicines which they were on routine basis. For children with epilepsy or other situations, it is very difficult. My doctor was telling me yesterday that patients, now the lockdown has been shifted, people have come and they have taken medicines for 6 months and gone. Now buying medicines for 6 months is a huge investment for many of them. People from low socioeconomic class, if they have to buy medicines for 6 months and store it without knowing which is going to expire within this 3 months time and things like that, they're storing it, and those kind of things can be challenging. Now, children with physical disability also or other disabilities have higher risk because of other than the physical disability, if the things like the safety measures. I think Dr. Venkatesh of All India Institute of Speech and Hearing had written an article about this. I think I've shared it with the group. The things to be taken care of during the COVID in relation for children with different kinds of disabilities. Because making people understand, especially with intellectual disability, will be difficult to educate them about the need for wearing the mask, which can be thrown away easily if they have to be taken out, and the difficulty in giving them treatment in relation to different things associated with the COVID also becomes an issue. If the persons have pre-existing stress or cumulative stress, again, people from broken homes or one of them parents separated, recent family stress, a newborn coming into the family, this kind of things are all can be additional risk in addition to the stress the child is under or the trauma the child is going through. There could be, depending on the history of the traumatic events, it can be people can have kind of a positive or negative reaction. Those who successfully dealt with the previous traumatic events may have greater coping resources. So if the children or the growing up one had overcome one of the stress factors, then probably the possibility of that person coping with another stress would be much more easier on. And if somebody has not resolved a previous traumatic event, that becomes more vulnerable, and we may have to, as professionals as well as the parents, we have to take care of them in a special way. We might need to strengthen the social support system. Again, the different kinds of traumas bring in different kinds of challenges. Even the messages, like during the earthquakes, people were asked to go out of the house. During the tsunami, people are asked to go into the house. And now for COVID also, we are asking that people don't stay home, safe home. And what happens if an earthquake occurs, which has happened in different parts of the country? Somewhere the earthquake was there and people had to run out. But then you have to take care of the different issues. People in flooded areas who had to stay in relief camps, the children in the relief camps, so different kinds of challenges are there. And it also depends on the expectations of myself or the self and the others. So sometimes the older sibling may feel greater stress if adults are not there or had to be hospitalized. Younger siblings need more time and care during and after the event, which again some of you may have experienced when you're dealing with the children. And it may be internal kind of a stress, or it can be external kind of a stress, including food and living in a safe environment during the flood times. May not be used to seeing parents under high stress and emotion. That also can lead to difficulties. I'm aware that some of you are dealing with the children with disabilities, and it can be more challenging in understanding and providing the appropriate kind of help. The status of the family members becomes very, very relevant. We are aware that many people have lost their lives now, and how the children will be taken care, or how with one of the parents alive, how they will be taken care by the children who are surviving. These are all going to be great challenges, and professionals may have to address some of those issues. So unless you probably think of that, reflect on that, explore that, you may not be able to explore what kind of a support, or you may not be able to get into a dialogue with the people concerned or the children concerned to see what kind of support is needed in providing help to the children. It also depends on how the children perceive and interpret the event. If somebody feels that it's the fault of one's own thing, or it's because of if I own the responsibility for myself, then it could be highly stressful. And sometimes children can get into magical thinking, may think that in a child, some of the bad thoughts may have caused it. This is again, if you had worked with people with trauma, you might realize they think that the parent has punished him, and he thought that why this person is living. It would have been better if this person is not there. And then something happens to that person, and that causes kind of a great trauma for the child. So the child is likely to, or sometimes not all children, people may have thought like that, why you're there, why it's better that you die, go and die, those kind of things people do say. But sometimes if the person feels that, it is because of that kind of a thought I had, this has happened, then it becomes more difficult and needs much more serious intervention. So it is very important. So as I was talking about the child with a toy, I can think that what is there in a toy, you can easily buy another toy. What is there, or I can buy and give it to you. But it's not that. But how the child perceives about it, how the child thinks about the event, those are all very important in helping or understanding the trauma reaction. We are right now probably going through a prolonged phase of lockdown, which many psychologists have said that this is a kind of a largest psychological experiment the world is undergoing through. And this is likely to bring different kinds of challenges for the children. Many people are into doing a lot of research on how it is going to be, but nobody is able to predict because there is nothing in front of us as psychologists. People talk about this kind of an event happening a century ago, or during the World War times, or in the 60s when there was a famine in the country. We had suffered. I had undergone through different kinds of suffering at that time, even as a child. But fortunately, it came to an end within a short span of time, spanning a couple of months. But this has been there for a year. And when is my school going to open? When am I able to play in my school? When am I, 1 year has passed without the child entering into the school. This kind of things has now been sort of experienced by the people who are living right now. It may have there in the history, but at that time there were not schools like this. Children were not socializing like this. But this is a kind of a situation where we are in a new phase, and we have to collectively, as earlier I said, we have to collectively, collaboratively think of national level or even local level collaboration of professionals who can understand these issues and respond to that, and probably get into international collaboration on understanding it. Things when it comes with warning, it's much more easier. You may have realized that the first lockdown was very traumatic, But the second was not that, because many of us had one, we had experience, and we could probably prepare children psychologically and physically, keeping the masks ready. And even during the intermittent period, many children, when they had the opportunity to go out, were wearing masks and going out. So they kind of learned the behavioral way of coping with the COVID situation. So if it comes with a lack of warning, that's where people talk about being preparation. So I wrote to the psychologist group that we need to be prepared, because the second wave was coming. Many professionals in different corners, health professionals in different corners, warned us about the second wave coming. And we also have a warning that the third wave is likely to come. Epidemiologists say that it's likely to come, so we need to be preparing our children for the third one. As I was telling, a couple of children were asking, when is the third wave coming? When am I again asked to be not going outside at all? That kind of a situation children are asking. That's a good sign, but I think we need to educate more and more people to be prepared for that. We also cannot assume the child is prepared if there is a warning. So what kind of a preparation is needed is, again, depends on the situation. So frantic preparation of adults may make it difficult for a child to prepare. Children wouldn't know what kind of a grocery to be brought, or medicines to be brought, or frequent things which we need to change has to be brought in. Different things are there which needs to be looked at. And children might find it difficult to comprehend the abrupt changes. I, as a child, had to shift my house several times. I still do not know why I have to change, because, of course, later I could realize that it's because of the transfer of the parents, but I was not thinking of that. Now, when I look back, how I would have thought, we have to discard a lot of things which you have kept for yourself, because you can't pack everything and go to another place. And when you go to the new place, you have to, it takes time for adjusting creatively to that new environment. New friends, etc., etc. But what I'm trying to say is that the change, even if it is prepared, or we have been told that, okay, we have to go to another place, is a difficult thing to comprehend for children. For adults, yes, there is a migration, or Rohingyas, or from the border that you have to move, or because of the flood you have to go. But for a child, it's very difficult to comprehend. This is again the risk factors, if it's a natural kind of a thing, or if it's a technological thing, depends on that, how the person would respond. The children might find natural disasters more stressful than something technological, because adolescents may find technological more stressful, as do adults. A lot of people with getting into Facebook now, people are getting into traumatized in many different ways. For children, it doesn't make that kind of the cyberbullying which we are hearing now, which is traumatic for us, and following that, people taking their lives, getting into depression, or net depression, etc., are all there for adults, and adolescents. But for children, that may not matter much, whereas a natural disaster would be more difficult for them to understand. Yeah, I think about the continuing threat of continuous storms, repeated flooding, earthquake aftershocks, repeated violence. I can talk for many hours on this natural disasters, because as an adolescent, I had seen and volunteered to help people in this kind of situations, where I was living near a river, in a house near the river, and not close by, but around about 200 meters or half a kilometer away from the river, which was flowing. And we were in an elevated place, and there was a school nearby where it used to be a relief camp for people. What the river gets flooded. So we used to visit our friend's place near this riverbed, and as I was walking, we could see the river, the water flowing behind us. The water from the dam was released, and suddenly there was an influx of water, and we just ran for safety. And some of the people, they could swim, they swam to safety, and all came to this place where the relief camp was there, and people lived there for weeks. And I used to be part of the relief team in providing the food and clothing and things like that for them. So it then people living there now, they know, okay, maybe next season, next flood, we have to be prepared for it. People living in earthquake areas, I'm sure Dehradun and your places was having different kinds of natural disasters. You may be prepared there, I don't know, but this repeated kind of things can make things more and more risky. Time, season of occurrence, night onset, more stressful. Degree of personal loss is again important. The number of people lost. I think in Uttarakhand had kind of a bad disaster, I think 5 years before. Several times it had, because it has come to our notice and in responding to the disasters in those areas. Anyway, I think I will skip some of these things and move forward. Individual difference could be there. As described earlier, many individual variables can and may contribute to the differences in response within an event. So it's not that I had faced this kind of a trauma, so another person may also either cope with it or may have a different kind of reaction. It need not be. And in the people in the same family may react differently. In the same classroom react differently. So the individual characteristics are very much important. It's very difficult to generalize from one event to another either. So if tsunami has done it, or if the flood has done it, if the earthquake has done like this, then it can be like this in COVID. We cannot say. If COVID was like this, we don't know what kind of a virus is likely to happen again. At that time, how it would be, nobody knows. But it's always important to be prepared. So the challenges are that the parents may not be aware of child's difficulty. Parents themselves may be overwhelmed or may deny child's reaction. As I've already described before, child's symptoms may not be what parents expect them to be. So, I don't find anything like this in the child. If it is so, that should be happening. If the child is depressed, then these things should be there. But in children and adolescents, the depression is manifested totally different from what we would see in the adults. So child may be more scared of an ambulance ride than the accident. Sometimes you might think that the child is reacting in this way because of the accident, but need not be, because the person is scared of the whistle of the ambulance or the sight of the accident, or maybe associating the ambulance with something else. So that could be the reaction. So we can't expect that, what the reaction could be, unless you explore and find out, and the child says, or child comes out with kind of a emotional reaction to what the child, or what the child is feeling about it. And the parent's reaction also may increase child's response also. Seeing the mother or the father getting more and more prepared also can increase the child's responses too. The children present greater challenge to mental health service providers, because there are more variety of responses to children than in adults, as I mentioned before, and children are more likely to generate emotional responses in service providers. Some child crying can generate a lot of feelings within the service providers. A child crying, I was also kind of reflecting on that. I was telling about a 6-year-old girl sexually abused. If a child comes with that kind of an emotion, I've already talked about different children experiences that also can generate different kinds of emotional service in the service providers, which I need to be working on, or I need to be taking care. So interventions we have to think of short and long-term effects. Length of child's response to hard to predict. 1 to 2 years is not uncommon. But we need to understand that these are all ordinary reactions to extraordinary events. So we need to normalize this for the child, try not to invalidate the fears. Many people say, oh, it's okay, this is part of your kind of a reaction, accept the fears. These are some of the common things which we find, which actually is annoying for the children, or it doesn't help. Children generally don't recover until after parents do. So that's also important, that parents, if there's a problem with the parents, we need to work with the parents and get that corrected so that the children will be at peace. So therefore, family as a level of intervention is also important. You may have to handle the not only the child, the family as a whole, because people do not understand the trauma and the trauma reactions. That creates more of fears. So help the child to understand what is taking place. Simple and accurate information is provided. It has to be provided. So this I would like to repeat. Simple. It should be simple, not complex. I've been probably telling you a lot of things now, which is slightly complicated. But when you talk to children, it has to be in simple language which they can understand, and it has to be accurate. This is something which Indian parents have difficulty. They tell a lot of things which are not accurate, which creates problems later for the mental health professionals. Ummaki, I don't know what you would say in Ummaki. If you cry, something from outside will come and grab you, or the evil spirit will come and drag you, and you create or make the child more and more fearful rather than helping the child to cope with the kind of emotional reaction the child is undergoing through. So that's very important, that we need to give accurate information. Listen to what the children have to say. Listen to what children have to say. It's very important. It's very important to understand their perspective. How you would get it, again, you may have to do a different kind of strategy in getting that. Share with child that adults were afraid to, but don't share adult pathology. What kind of things the adults undergo through, you don't have to tell, but try to understand that even at early primary school age, students may fear that their emotions mean that there is something wrong with them. So people hold their emotions. They don't want to cry or they don't want to show their fear, but they're afraid within. So unless they acknowledge the fear, we can't get them into the healing process. Be tolerant of behavioral changes. That's very important. Very, very difficult. So a child who has been studying well, suddenly dropping in the grade. So that is a behavioral change. You need to understand what is happening. Organize play sessions with the peers and adults where they can play out their fears. I was telling you earlier, you have to use different strategies to get them over it, get them acknowledge it, and play out their fears. Sometimes dramatization can bring healing. We tried this in different scenarios and it really worked. I was talking about the natural disaster which had happened of landslide 20 years before. We did a lot of drawing and playing with them and dramatizing, using drama with them. We did the same thing with the tsunami related stuff. Related work. Listen to what the child has to say and how the child says it. And sometimes when the child says, we may have to help the child to clarify what they're saying. That kind of a verbalization also, modified verbalization also might be healing for the child. If the children are not given the accurate kind of an information, that they also would sense it. You're not giving the kind of accurate information. You cannot hide your own feelings and say that, no, I'm not afraid of this. So it has to be, we have to be genuine within myself. And if you are involved in preparedness, we need to involve the children in that. So if you're having a play, involve them to bring certain things meant for the play activities, or if you're thinking of preparing your activities like grocery collection example, then you involve the child also in collecting that, keeping that, preparing the mask. If you are making your own mask, make the child part of it. Help understand what causes natural disasters or other disasters. Even here, I think the virus, what is a virus, what is the kind of precaution needed, why it is needed, has to be told to the child. Otherwise, the child might keep the mask but may not be at the appropriate place for the adequate protection which is needed. Same thing with the hand washing or the physical distance that is needed. Help understand what can and what cannot be controlled. Help understand how preparedness can help. Now, this is something very much important in this. I'm right now in a place where in the ground floor there were two children. Yesterday I was getting out of the house and they were not wearing mask. I said, what happened to your mask? They don't have any answer. This has been happening in this place quite some time. They are together but without mask in the open. they're not from the same family, but they're from different houses coming together to call another child. So you can know the importance for the behavioral control, and that has to be, they have to be helped in preparing for the third wave. Help understand how response events can make a difference. Need to move back into normal peer group activities. This is another challenge I think we may have. We are asking them to be keeping distance. So when the children get back to the school, how it would be again is something which whether they will be okay with other children, or whether they still again isolate themselves, especially children who have difficulty in socialization. What they would be doing is a point of concern. So gently encourage discussion of the event and the aftermath. I think these are all some of the things which you already know: participation in community renewal, etc. So the goal is to restore child to previous level of functioning. This is relevant for other kinds of traumatic events also, not only COVID-related ones. Help family reorganize its world. Help child gain sense of self-efficacy and control. This might need some kind of a long-term interaction with the child. Play therapy is useful. Children tend to repeat traumatic experiences endlessly. Not useful to analyze the play. So if the child is engaged in a play, there's no point in kind of interpreting from a psychodynamic or a psychoanalytical perspective, but it's important to allow the child to play with it and let out the kind of emotions which are pent up, and allow the person to become aware of the feelings and the emotional reactions. Allow to repeat up to a point, intervene and introduce more positive form of play with resolution. Yeah, I think I have already mentioned this, so I'll probably talk about the Gestalt therapy and trauma. And that we need to be aware that Gestalt therapy is one of the therapeutic approaches. There are, as we have seen, we saw how play can be useful. There is a Gestalt play therapy also which is being used. And one of the therapists who has been dealing with trauma for a long period of time said about how she has been dealing with the trauma. In the last 10 years, I get to see more and more people with trauma. This was written in 2015, if I remember correctly. Childhood trauma and actual war and torture trauma. I'm still learning about that. There is now almost nothing terrible anymore than I could not imagine humans would be capable of doing to each other. This is a terrible thing which we see this in the newspapers, but I don't know what's the kind of a response we as professionals can give to this. It needs more and larger coordination, larger networking, larger interdisciplinary or better interdisciplinary approach in addressing to this very challenging things. And it requires a lot of capacity to hold traumatized people with their stories. I've given you a certain glimpse of it, but there are lots and lots of stories which people have shared, and this therapist says that I can do that and stay present. Because having learned about the resilience of so many survivors and myself with other issues, I can support them to contact or develop their resilience within themselves. Why I quoted her is because she was my Gestalt therapy, one of the Gestalt therapy trainers. So she had imparted us in helping how to cope with trauma of different people. So I can say that they're at least a very great challenge for me, and I choose sometimes to say no to them. Because sometimes people working with some people could be a great challenge, and sometimes one may have to say that, no, I can't take it. And sometimes people say that you don't understand my trauma, so better you don't work with me. That kind of a thing also can come. If there are young therapists, don't get disheartened by this. This can happen. This trainer of mine is a very experienced person, but people have said that to her also. So if you are in your beginning areas of helping other people, and if somebody says that, no, I don't want to work with you, don't get disheartened. This is likely to happen, either irrespective of the years of training or experience that you have. Yeah. Lessons from the international collaborations are many, which I've already mentioned, many of those things, but I personally feel that we need national collaboration at different levels. We saw that happening at tsunami, different groups of people coming into the same group of people, same relief camp, working at different levels. that is not going to help the people. One person will call them for a particular activity, another group of service providers will come and call for a different kind of a play activity, and all the children will get, or children or adults will get confused what is happening. So that should not be there. So we need to have a clear plan, just like in the war footing, you have a clear plan so that you don't collide with each other. You go in an organized manner and provide it. We need better coordination between different responders. That's also very much needed. So which area this agency would work, which now the state has been planning and doing things very well, but at the same time, the government is for the involving the NGOs and other players. So there has been several efforts from the government of India to coordinate and work it, but I think we need better coordination between different responders, because the number of people who need help are many, which I don't think any, even in developed countries, that does not work. There are many people I was involved in some kind of a dialogue with some of the people, so they felt that there are a lot of things which government could do, but there are a lot of people who are left out. There is a lot of isolation. There are a lot of marginalization. I'm not talking from our country, but from other countries also. They have reported this. So in developed countries, if this can be the scenario, there could be voices in people where it can't be reached, that this kind of issues could be coming up. And I think professional associations have a greater responsibility and role to play. Unfortunately, many associations are not taking it seriously in our country. Let's hope that young people who are listening to me might come forward and network and make the association stronger and develop a strategy sooner. Since Rajini had asked me about people and other international collaborators, Ono van der Hart is from Netherlands. He has been offering training and consultation of trauma-related dissociation and related dissociative disorders. So you can probably note down this email and write to her and get in touch with the psychology university at, I can pronounce it, read it, Utrecht University in the Netherlands. And I think, we had in 2005 a Singapore workshop wherein the a capacity building workshop was held. So after that only I got more and more involved in the training of trainers, as well as responding to the trauma in an organized manner. This was provided by, this workshop was organized by the American Psychological Association, International Society for Study of Behavioral Development, International Association of Applied Psychology, China Association of Sciences and Technology. That time, I remember people talking about SARS virus. We had a speaker from China who came for that workshop and talked about SARS virus. And at that time, I was actually thought for myself, they were talking about a chemical virus, etc. So I was wondering, what is the need for that in India? Now I know. When this came up, then I knew that, okay, things can happen in India too, and we don't. That's what makes me feel that what else can come up for us and be prepared for it. And this workshop was again, we had association, the collaboration from Australian Psychological Association, UNICEF, University of South Dakota's Disaster Mental Health Institute was also involved, and the trainer at the Singapore workshop, one of them was from Dakota's Disaster Mental Health Institute, Jerry Jacobs, who has been with us, and so he had come to India several times and had addressed different groups in Chennai, Kolkata. I think he had been to different places in Bangalore and addressed and trained several people on the training of trainers. So UNICEF is another agency where you can contact British Psychological Society, of course, which I mentioned. The APA has a division 56, which was formed I think in 2016 or 15. Earlier also they were providing a lot of support to disaster and trauma, but this division was formed as a separate one called trauma psychology, and it's meant for, provides a lot of opportunity for and resources for collaboration. So if you want, you can look at this website and get more information that this is a part of UN. You need to be aware of IAC, Interagency Standing Committee now related to COVID. They have brought out a lot of information, and how different people from different professionals from one country can help in another country. There are guidelines which are brought forward by IAC, and if you are thinking of collaborating, I think you need to look at that document which is available in their website. There is an international society called International Society for the Study of Trauma and Dissociation, and you have another on July 15th. Another webinar is coming up. This is about the making membership or getting membership with this association. So you can probably attend this workshop. The URL is given there. You can attend that and get to know more about the association. It may be a bit expensive. I don't know how many of you can afford taking membership. At least being aware of it and getting the free resources would be a good opportunity. And this is another global collaboration on traumatic stress, which is Netherlands based. They have a newsletter, and you can write to them, and they will send you the free newsletter if you write in this address. They had conducted a multinational or intercollaborative research, and unfortunately the research findings have not been published yet, so I'm not able to share that. They said it was conducted a year before, and the results are there. How different countries are coping, and they have found a different kind of a profile from the Asian region. Again, I don't know how to interpret that, because two things. One thing is maybe our resilience is much better, so it may be different from the trauma experience from other places. Second thing is we have done this through the internet, which means that people who are able to access it only could have responded it. So maybe people who are not on the streets could respond. On the street meaning people from the low socioeconomic status who are migrating or who are not able to have a safe place may not have responded to that. So we don't know what kind of a thing, whether we have got a representative sample to tell that this is how India is coping. Let's look forward to the finding, which may come out soon, and I'll share with the group as if possible. So, or ask Tenali to share it. These are some of the other societies which, if you go online, you can find their website and get more and more information. Some of the organizations have their own research opportunities and avenues, so you may have to do that on your own. You may not get any prescription. Okay, you go to the site and do this, but you have to look through that. Different kinds of associations which are there. Some of them are in different languages. So, but I'm giving you that if you come across some people who are willing to cooperate with India and want to do research, you can get associated with them. And this again, the German one, the Korean one, the South African one. And what's the way forward? I mean, I think I would like to tell you that there's something called the Indian International Association for Applied Psychology, IAAP, which I mentioned earlier. They also have a program called ARTS, Advanced Research Training Seminars. So they provide fellowship for attending some of those programs, their research programs. And usually that happens along with one of their congresses, either with the International Cross-Cultural Conference or International Association for the Applied Psychology Conference. Either before or after they conduct this arts, so that those who are attending or those who are selected for this arts seminar will be given the travel funds, travel support. So you can both attend the arts as well as the conference, either which precedes or comes before that. So it comes after that. So you can explore that. Go to the website of IAAP, which I mentioned earlier, and explore it. So what is the way forward? Let's work together towards a more inclusive world and a trauma-informed society, as I've mentioned earlier. We recognize the prevalence of trauma among all of us. We acknowledge that whenever there is a reaction, there is an old wound. We understand the imprint of trauma on our behaviors and its impact on our relationship. others and understand how that's driving their behavior. We see the real person underneath the behavior and the trauma. This is very important. We, as I've been repeatedly saying, we need see the real person underneath the behavior and the trauma. Just because somebody is dissociating as being speechless or showing out anger or not responding the way you expect to respond, it is you need to see the person underneath the behavior and the trauma. And we must support connection and compassion as the foundations of safety. We know that the experience of safety is the beginning of healing. We understand that all trauma is intergenerational. There are a lot of studies which are coming out saying that the Holocaust survivors, how the trauma has been transferred from generations. Genetic transference also, from a genetic perspective, also people are coming out with the finding that it can be transgenerational. So, being informed, let us move towards a better society where people are willing to help each other to come out of this trauma and have a positive, healthy living. With this, I would like to close my talk here and give room for opportunity to, if there is.
All the participants put up any questions if you have so that our listeners for them.
Very good afternoon, ma'am. Very good afternoon, sir. I'm Garima Singh from Punjab University. I'm the research scholar there. I have a question. Actually, I want to know about the indirect trauma that doctors experience, nurses experience, or any helping professional experience.
Okay. Can you be a bit more specific? What you want to know more about it, or how to respond to that, or?
I want to know that how to respond to that person who is suffering. Because
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is a question, or this is something which I experienced from my students in 2005 when we were responding to the following tsunami. There were about 1,000 people airlifted from Andamans to Chennai. They were in the Air Force camp in Tambaram. People were with families, people who were in the defense as well as their families and children. There were a huge number, and there were very few doctors who were there to respond to the people. So my students said that, sir, we went there to help these people, but all the professionals were coming to us and asking that, we are tired. We are sort of, we don't know. Seeing these events one by one, we are more traumatized. So what Garima said is a quite possibility. And we have experienced that in the COVID time also. The first responders, not only doctors, the police people and the different people who had to address these issues were with different kinds of emotions. So responding to that is not different from what you would experience, how you would handle another trauma. But you need to be aware of their level of understanding and handle them without your trauma coming out there. When I say your trauma or your kind of a reaction, many people I know are think that, I'm talking. Are you a psychologist, Garima?
Yes, sir. I'm doing my PhD.
Yeah, okay. So a lot of psychologists feel that, okay, doctors, psychologists, that kind of a difficulty is there. But I think it is quite unfortunate, because I've taught many medical students, and they still not only teaching them but helping them out in different ways. Being a medical college, having worked in different medical colleges, we have taken several medical students and helped them to come out of their issues. So unless you have that kind of an attitude, thinking that, okay, he's a doctor, how is he going to see me? That's not going to help. So your attitude is very important in helping out, and you see that person as a person who is experiencing trauma, and you work with the trauma of that person if you are trained to do that. Yeah. Did I answer your question, Garima?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, I was also wondering, that triggered me another question, that is in relation to the vicarious trauma. See, what happened what is happening right now? I mean, I'll talk about my grandson. I used to watch the news in the television, and he would say that I don't want to see your news. this is all about dead. There is nothing else. So I was not aware of that. The how the death can impact a child who is 5-year-old, who is saying that I don't want to see this. Probably it may have traumatized him. I don't know. I've not explored from that perspective, but now as I'm talking, I thought that I need to check with him what happened to him. So we have seen several children following tsunami, because this thing coming on the television, because I don't know, many children may be worried now, and people who are actively in practice might be working with those kind of children, or the school psychologists may be dealing with them. But seeing this in television, the death and the floating and the flood and different things can also traumatize children. Yes. So if you are thinking of that kind of a trauma, that's also very important to be addressed. Yeah. Thank you, Garima, for bringing it up. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
So there is one question in the chat box. Can I read out the questions?
Yeah, please. You tell the name also, then I will know.
Yes. Professor Hitesh Kurana, sir, he's a psychiatrist from Haryana. Sir's question is there any role of mirror neurons in experience of burnout and indirect trauma?
I don't know whether suddenly, if you ask me about mirror neurons, there are a lot of studies from a neurological perspective, but I don't think I'm competent to talk about that at this level. There were a lot of discussions where I've attended internationally, people talking about the importance of the neurological importance, but I don't know. I don't think I'll take on that question right now. I can probably get back to Doctor after exploring a little bit further or checking my old notes on it. Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. Yeah. Can you just note that question and put it in my mail, Rajni?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Or you can probably ask Doctor if he wants to share some of his thoughts, because this is a good opportunity for other people to learn if he has some information on it. Can you do that, Doctor?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I am Dr. Hitesh speaking from.
Please.
I am psychiatrist. I am in fact overwhelmed with your talk. It is very informative and very lucidly presented. And that's how the question came to my mind. Because whenever we are listening to music, or whenever, whether it is happy or sad, it induces some emotions in us. Yeah. And that is because of the mirror neurons. And the same thing happens when we are experiencing some trauma of someone, or we are having the other kinds of other person's emotions. And I felt there is a lot of similarity between the two processes. That it is also just like experiencing something vicariously, and in which the role of mirror neurons getting activated is very much into talk and has highlighted. So I thought there might be some kind of similarity. If we are feeling burnout, it is probably because the other person is feeling pain, and we are also feeling the same kind of pain through activation of mirror neurons, and because of which we are getting burnt out.
Possible. I mean, your thinking is quite good. I think you should check with the DST or ICMR and take this as a research project where you can probably explore it further. But I'm also thinking, as you are narrating, a lot of things depends on the vulnerability factor of the person also. Maybe it's something to do with the mirror neurons, but the number of suicides that we saw among the health professionals during this initial phase of COVID, where they felt helpless, whether, because we have not explored whether these people were having any kind of a vulnerability to different kinds of reactions. So it need not be just the burnout, maybe the predisposition of the person who comes with could also be there. So that I don't know what kind of a research would help us to conclude. We may have animal models on different kinds of things, but whether when it comes to human beings, whether there are other variables, I don't know. But thanks, Dr. Hitesh, for bringing it up. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am Dr. Jagdish, working in Psychiatry Department, BMHRC Institute, Bhopal.
Okay.
During this pandemic, I have seen few cases like generally they are a big level businessmen or the person who lost their job, and they are coming to our hospital and they are saying like they are depressed and even they thought to leave the home or suicide. In this case, they generally ask how long it will be there, like to go the corona and the other things. So we counsel, but they are not satisfied. The things like their job and the other settlement, how it will be resume again. And the second thing is I have seen two parents having children with mentally handicapped, like intellectual disability, and due to Corona, they are in the home. There is no school and no full-time kind of hostel facilities, and they are getting full of trouble, kind of trauma, and they want to send their child into full-time kind of hostels. So this too is genuine practical problems, possibilities we are facing this. How to guide them and counsel in that perspective of pandemic?
Yeah, I think the first question is something which I was also involved in a support group during the first phase, and majority of them were from US, the participants. So I was actually one of the participants, and see, it was a terrible kind of an experience to share our feelings. Or all service providers, where the question that repeatedly came up was at that time, when it is going to end.
Yes.
And there was a time in India we thought, okay, we have won over it, but I think it hit us back again. And the epidemiologists and the other health professionals are giving us a warning that third wave is something which we can't escape from it, as far as the current scientific understanding goes. But when it would come, we don't know. So I think we need to be giving that kind of an information to people who come without we losing or instilling some kind of a hopelessness. I know that it's something like children with intellectual disability, which you talked about. A lot of people give them the hope. Okay, things will improve, which the doctor, the pediatrician, is very much aware that it's not going to improve. But we give them a kind of a hopeless, we give them that kind of a false hope, which they realize after 12 years or 13 years that nothing is going to change. And then they find it difficult to educate or provide the appropriate training for this child. Similarly, I would say that scenario, we need to probably take a stance that this is something which, like you, I am also not aware. I also don't know when this is going to end. But for the financial things, I also don't have an answer. We still have different conflicting information coming, the GDP coming down, GDP going up, and the share things going up and going down. So we can only give him any kind of trends which are available from the international experts. If at all the economists are able to tell us, maybe one can guide him to read and get familiarized with it and prepare for him to face the kind of eventuality. Without, see that his mental MSC is properly maintained, so that assessed, so that that he's not going into any kind of self-harming behavior. That's the only thing. I don't know whether I've helped you, but that's what I can tell in that in response to your first question. So your second question is, you're talking about. It actually made me smile. It brought in different kinds of feeling within me, saying, "See, I am having one child at home, grandchild, who is was supposed to go to school but staying at home, and the difficulty that I and my wife are undergoing through during this past 1 year. So, if we find it difficult to help a child who is at home, who always says that come and play from morning. Now also I have come to another place to do this webinar. Morning he said that play. This is what he said in the morning. So I can imagine how another child with an intellectual difficulty would be more demanding, and then you're talking about two people, it could be more and more stressful. I have no answer for that. I think we have to collectively think of that scenario.
And the person with intellectual disability is adult. So again, it is like they already crossed the time of 12 years, 15 years to understand and adopt the condition.
Yeah.
So it is like kind of, sir, another point of, again, it is going to the occasional training, pre-occasional, like occupation, occasional, this is the age group where they are finding difficulty to handle him. And then again, it is an age of, then the problem with sexual part also comes to the picture. There's a lot of problems.
Dr. Jagadish, what happens, I am associated with a NGO called MHAT.
Yes.
in Calicut. I don't know whether you've heard about it, but it's headed by a psychiatrist. Mental Health Action Trust. We are catering to around 2,000 patients in different parts of North Kerala. So I'm taking care of the lay counselors there, and these people are attending 54 different clinics in different districts of North Kerala. So when I got associated with them, we were talking about the community clinics, which is run by the NGOs, but we provide the technical help. So it's mainly a volunteering effort by these people, and we were wanting to provide daycare in these community clinics. So which means that people who are at home, we were trying to bring them to the center to spend their day here. They're all chronically ill, not intellectually challenged. Chronically ill, but there were a couple of people with intellectual disability too. And we were taking only the adults, not the children. And now when we were sort of, had the momentum to start the clinics, the daycare centers, the lockdown had come. So now I was saying that you stay back home. So
Yes.
it has really become, even with the intellectually challenged, the vocational training centers, it's very hard to
Yes.
train the people in doing that. So this 2 years of gap, I don't know how we are going to manage if and when the lockdown is lifted or we are back to a kind of a routine, a different kind of a routine. I don't know how we'll be able to catch up with the training part of it. I think it's going to be a huge strenuous task on our part. But that's where I can say that we are not prepared for that, or we have not even, as you have brought it now, I don't think people are thinking of how we would handle this kind of an issue. We are staying home and teaching online, many of the teachers, but I don't think we are looking into this kind of a nitty-gritties of different things which may come up, which may pose huge challenge. And I'm afraid that there may not be many takers to train these people if you are not able to train them adequately, because the aggression, the behavioral reactions these people can have, the children can have, is going to be. I don't know how it is going to be. I'm not sounding terrible, but I think we have to be realistic and address these issues as we have seen in the past. Thank you, Dr. Jagadish.
Sir, there are 3 more questions, and I would like to read out to the user. And Ashima Gupta, she says, due to the pandemic, even mental health service providers are subjected to the same kind of trauma as their patients. Because of this, the patients are about their therapist or psychologist. Sir, please share your views on how this can impact the therapy process.
Today morning, I had a call from a person who is not known to me, but the person said that she has been a therapist in private practice and she was taking in-person patients. For the past 1 year, it's very, very difficult that she's not getting clients because in-person is not allowed. So this, I also, as I say, as responding to Dr. Hitesh and Dr. Jagadish, we don't have any answer for this kind of situations. Dr. Jagadish, are you also a psychiatrist?
Psychologist, sir. Psychologist.
Psychologist, and Dr. Hitesh is a psychiatrist, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Psychiatric Society has got something called as support fund. So in the eventuality, they get supported. But what about the psychologists in private practice? There is no kind of a security available for us. So that is something which as an individual, you and me cannot take up. The government will be able to do that. I know in some of the states, they provide financial support to farmers, provide support to people in the unorganized sector, they provide some kind of a monthly support. But that is also not there for people who are in private practice and not only psychologists, maybe physiotherapists or other people who are in contact with the people. Those things are occupational therapists for that, different sectors. So if you're not in a government job, I think it's very difficult for this COVID time. And I don't know how, I think the government has to look into it. I don't have an answer. I feel slightly, I feel guilty for not being actively, getting the associations prepared, irrespective of being a member of different societies.
Sir, I might be wrong in saying, but my experience says that somehow the private sector, especially NGOs, they are doing much better job than the public sector as far as the COVID and providing help to the sector is
Yeah.
concerned. I'm getting this feeling, sir.
Yeah. What you're saying is true. The NGOs are doing it, but what I'm talking about the private practitioners who are independently practicing and living only on practice. See, they are getting a toll. What you said about the NGOs are again little bit organized. They have a system of funding either from the government or from donors. Donors, see, our NGO is also running on donorship, and that is also hit. Because people unless as Jagadish was saying, if we are depending on the industrialists and people who have money to run these NGOs, and if they are not pumping money to the NGOs, then we are also stuck. But again, NGOs will have, because of the credibility, they may probably able to continue serving. See, now many sectors they're not taking new people. So freshers, where will they go? There are online companies which they are recruiting, but again, it's becoming the number of positions available when compared to the pre-COVID days, and now I think it's coming down, except in some of the online platforms. Otherwise, other NGOs are not taking new people.
Yeah, it might be true, sir, because everywhere there is a huge rush of people and difficult to manage.
Yeah, even. I don't know whether that's one of the reasons why the government has delayed the admissions in different sectors. I don't know. I was actually reflecting, had the NIEPVD come, or the first year medical students, or all the other students would have come, that would have been helping the health sector. But at the same time, if they pass out, where will they go? That's the other side of it. So I think I don't know, but I'm just sharing with you my concerns about it.
Sir, can I add one thing?
I think Rajani says somebody else's question is there. We'll come back to you, Dr. Jagadish, after that. Yeah.
Yes, sir. There are two more questions. One is from Swasti Sharma. She says, I think another thing to look into can be a compassion fatigue along with vicarious trauma, which therapists as well as healthcare providers are going through. Here's her comments.
Yeah, probably yes, but that could be more because there are a lot of people who are not providing help without supervision. What you said could be true, because in the West, in many countries, there is a system for supervision, which we don't have, a well-supervised system. And this is something when I address to people who are in the service, when I talk about supervision, they feel slightly, unhappy about it, or sometimes get irritated also. Why are you talking about supervision to me? I have done so many years of studies, and now I am a counselor or a psychologist or a clinical psychologist. Who are you to talk about supervision? That's a kind of an attitude I get from them, but they don't realize that this kind of a fatigue could be there, or it could be a different. See, compassion fatigue, it's coming from a Western concept, but maybe there is something else. See, I talk about karma. I'm okay with it, but how long my karma I can be with my karma and say that everything is karma. There's a limit to it, and that's something maybe we may be experiencing something different, Dr. Swasti, in relation to that. So maybe explore it further, ask people, get information of what exactly you are feeling, and tell us what is working for you and what is not working for you, and we might come out with a different kind of a fatigue which people may have. Thanks, Dr. Swati.
So one more question is from Garima Sen. Sir, please share any resource on indirect trauma. What I can see is there are many people asking about the resource information from you, sir. So if you can share information, I'll text them individually and disclose them. Yeah,
I'll probably share that, or if the psychologist asks them to write to me, you can share them my email ID also. I'll pass it on to them. Yeah. Can go back to Jagadish. He had a question, no? He wanted to ask something.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing, sir. Earlier we used to have CRE program. Like in this pattern, can we have kind of protocol for parents or in that particular on field? Like we can go and have some occupation therapist, psychologist, and other expert in the rehabilitation, and have some visits like district wise particularly when the children are in home in this pandemic time. So I think like CRE for a professional, same kind of things for children and parents could be possible.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I think I hope Dr. Rajani as well as Dr. Himanshu, the director, is listening, because they have to take the lead in doing that, or tell the government that this is needed, or if they are allowed to do this initiative locally, you can do that. If Bhopal Center, if you want to start it, but write to other people. That's one thing which I've been telling. I do think in my place. I was talking about the Calicut model, which is there in the internet as well as in research papers. But we need to be collaborating with other people and say, what best can be done in this kind of situation, which unfortunately is not happening.
Yes.
I think if I would like to, I've been telling to people that, it's not something which I have to take credit for what I'm doing, but I have to collaborate and network with other people and collectively do things which would be for the larger interest of our country and the people.
And one more thing, sir, ICMR, I am working under ICMR since last 5 years.
Yeah.
Earlier, I was working in NIN, National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad. But I have found that between the collaboration with RCI, our rehabilitation, our mental health, and Indian Council of Medical, there is no collaboration kind of research I have found. Even once I spoke also regarding some research would be done on autism, because they generally see the major population. Even 0.1% population also matter for our country. So if RCI come forward and go with ICMR, then should be done some kind of epidemiological research, at least for the correct data and for the correct professional we need in the society on the ground level.
Okay, I think, Rajani, you need to record what Dr. Jagadish said and send it to the appropriate agencies.
Yes, sir. Everything is recorded.
Yeah, no, I'm not in the government, so I cannot be doing that, or I can't own that responsibility of doing that. But I think Rajani, you can do that, or Dr. Himanshu can do that. Yeah.
Sir, I will definitely put up all the questions to your mail also, sir.
Yeah. See, there is a need for people to come together, a small group to come together and have a discussion on this, and that, because the policy makers are not aware of the situation which you people have, which Jagadish and Dr. Hidesh talked about, or what Swasti and Garima talked about. So they have to be informed by a technical expert committee of a think tank of people who are here, or identifying one or two people from different centers and come together and tell that this is what is needed. It's not that we don't have expertise. We have several people like Dr. Jagadish and Dr. Hitesh and other people from whom we can take inputs and make a document which can help the policy makers to think and reflect or have dialogue with us and implement it as fast as can. As I said earlier, we have to do this on a war footing. We cannot just sleep over it and succumb to the with different kinds of fatigue or different kinds of tiredness, etc., etc. Yeah. Okay, I think it's time. Thank you, Dr. Rajani, for inviting me and all the participants who stayed throughout. There were about 70 in the beginning, and we have 62 before people will sign out. I think I would say goodbye to you, Dr. Rajani, and over to Rajani for conclusion.
Thank you, sir, for delivering such a webinar, explained precisely on trauma and emotional assault, dislocation model by Bruce Alexander. The cases discussed was very wonderful, and the wisdom of trauma, disconnection of body and feelings, which is very much important for the budding psychologists and any professionals, which is very dire necessary to know about the disconnection, the body and the feelings. And you explained about the psychological first aid and the children's reactions to trauma, physical, behavioral and cognitive reactions, and how important is the role of intervention, family as a whole, to play is important in the intervention. Active listening, teaching children how to express emotions without holding within is something very important, because children do not try to express their emotion, probably either because of the fear from the parent or from the neighbor or anybody. But teaching them how to express emotions is very much very useful, sir. And thank you for explaining about the collaborations nationally and internationally. And takeaway messages about abundant knowledge from you, sir. And now I hand over my responsibility for vote of thanks to Mr. Manish Kumar, who is a special educator, CRC Sikkim.
धन्यवाद मैम। मैं मनीष कुमार, विशेष शिक्षक, CRC सिक्किम। आज के इस कार्यक्रम में मुझे धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करने का सुअवसर प्राप्त हुआ। इसके लिए हम अपने यशस्वी निदेशक परम आदरणीय डॉक्टर हिमांशु दास जी, रेजिडेंट कोऑर्डिनेटर महोदया, मिस आयरिस मैम और आज के वेबिनार की समन्वयक महोदया डॉक्टर रजनी मैम का धन्यवाद व्यक्त करता हूँ। सर्वप्रथम हमारे संरक्षण यशस्वी निदेशक डॉक्टर हिमांशु दास जी, निदेशक राष्ट्रीय दृष्टि दिव्यांगजन संस्थान देहरादून महोदय, आपके कुशल नेतृत्व एवं कुशल मार्गदर्शन में हम सभी ऐसे महत्वपूर्ण विषयों पर वेबिनार का आयोजन कर पा रहे हैं। महोदय जी, आपका सादर आभार, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। धन्यवाद के क्रम को आगे बढ़ाते हुए आज के कार्यक्रम के मुख्य अतिथि, मुख्य वक्ता परम आदरणीय प्रो एल सेम एस मणिकम महोदय जी, आप भारत के एक मशहूर क्लिनिकल साइकोलॉजिस्ट हैं। आज आपने ट्रॉमा शब्द के अर्थ के बारे में बताया। यह घटना एक ऐसी घटना होती है जो शारीरिक, भावनात्मक, आध्यात्मिक या मनोवैज्ञानिक क्षति का कारण बनती है। सर ने वैश्विक महामारी कोविड-19 बच्चों पर इसका क्या रिएक्शन होता है, बहुत ही सारगर्भित जानकारी प्रदान किया। यह आपके बच्चे के मूड, भूख, नींद और समग्र स्वास्थ्य को प्रभावित कर सकता है, जिससे कई कठिनाइयां उत्पन्न हो जाती है। महोदय जी, आपने ट्रॉमा के इतिहास, यह कैसे होता है, इससे हम कैसे बच सकते हैं, बहुत महत्वपूर्ण जानकारी प्रदान की है। महोदय जी, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, सादर आभार। धन्यवाद के क्रम में सीआरसी सिक्किम की रेजिडेंट कोऑर्डिनेटर महोदया परम आदरणीय मिस आइरिस मैम के द्वारा हम सभी को समय समय पर मार्गदर्शन मिलता रहता है। आपके कुशल नेतृत्व में सीआरसी सिक्किम अति महत्वपूर्ण विषयों पर कार्यक्रमों का आयोजन कर पा रहा है। मैम, आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, सादर आभार। आज के इस महत्वपूर्ण वेबिनार में इस पटल पर उपस्थित आदरणीय प्रतिभागीगण, कार्यक्रम समन्वयक महोदया, कार्यक्रम सह समन्वयक महोदय एवं सीआरसी परिवार को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आप सभी के सहयोग से हम ऐसे कार्यक्रमों का आयोजन कर पा रहे हैं। भारत सरकार द्वारा संचालित किरण कार्यक्रम में मानसिक परेशानियां हेतु सुझाव 24/7 निःशुल्क टोल फ्री नंबर 180059990019। यदि आप मानसिक तनाव से ग्रसित हैं तो इस नंबर पर संपर्क करें। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Manish ji. Thank you everybody for participating for such a fruitful webinar. And the feedback form link is shared in the chat box. Kindly fill it up, and any suggestions, kindly fill it up. And with the blessings of our director sir and with the well wishes of everybody, and I would like to also thank resource person sir once again, and I would end the session. Thank you, sir.